Even eruit nog.
Why is that 2 times a stop 2100? 8240 kan ook nog wel doen.
Why are there 2 stops?
Yeah. Why has it 2 stops?
No, it's needed.
Okay, no idea. Waarom er 2 stops zijn, dat is eigenlijk zonde. Waarom dat?
Because 2 is better than 1.
In this case, yes.
I never used stop.
Right?
How do you stop?
Just go.
Oh, it's 21 vond ik.
Guckt sich 15 willst du noch was lernen?
Is
Ne?
that same story?
Ja, das ist mal eine Kopfhörer. Ja.
So, since we're not in Sweden, or in Germany, where I would expect everyone to be on time, what do people do in the Netherlands?
They just start.
Are they on time in the Netherlands?
We're on time, yeah.
Yeah, you're
If we're working. No, but in the Netherlands, if
in
we're
the Netherlands,
working,
you're on time.
we're on time.
By definition.
Right.
The French will be
Emma, can we try with the microphone? Because I'm not sure my throat will do this. Testing. Yeah? Testing. Testing. 8, 9, 8.
Didn't work. You have to hold it really close. You have to hold it really close.
Yeah, you have to put it in your mouth, I think.
It's actually not dead. It goes to a red light and then it goes immediately off again.
Better.
Yeah, that's normal.
Better.
Okay.
Hab Hunger.
These are the microphones by very well. Testing. 9, A, B.
You got audio on the mixer.
Everything's
You hope so? That's some brain cell of yours still here. Power on the box.
There's no bass.
The power.
The power of SYNC's coming.
I've got the power!
All right. Hello and welcome everyone to this talk about Overscan and sync scrolling. I was asked half a year ago to come and do a talk on the latest discoveries. And I've heard more rumors about what I'm going to talk about since then than I think I put into slides. What we're seeing is, of course, one of the effects from the demo that SYNC showed at the demo competition yesterday. The 1 meg SPFM, full screen, X-Listing, true color, scroll text. A special version that runs in Atari. The release code does not, Atari does not emulate the sync tricks that I do. And I'm going to try to exit Atari, because what you all wanted to see when you came here was a PowerPoint presentation.
Yay!
Nice white screen.
So let's try to get that PowerPoint presentation.
Hey.
And we're back. Unfortunately, the PowerPoint presentation did not run on the company computer, so we had to use my computer instead. All right, we got it. I'm going to talk about a few things here today. I'm going to talk about Overscan. I'm going to talk about sync lock, and I'm going to talk about sync scrolling, and all these things, of course, tie a bit together. And I'm going to start by doing a bit of a history lesson. And it might be that there are people in the audience who know this better than I do, and if so, I do want you to correct this, because the things I write often go onto wikis and forums, so if you want to correct the history, it's a good place to do it. Credits for this presentation, I claim that most of it goes to LGBK, Polysmos, who has done an immense research into sync switches on the Atari ST. Very, very grateful for all the work that he's done, that I've had to build upon. Ejor on the Atari forum has done some pretty cool research that I'm going to reference as well. Alien of ST Connection, of course everyone knows that he's done pretty much the seminal work in the beginning on sync scrolling, the glue and the shifter. And there is some of me in here as well. That is not known until this presentation. So let's start with Overscan. I am definitely sure that everyone here knows what Overscan is. Alessa invented it if there's anyone who knows whether Elissa was influenced by how you did things on the Commodore 64, that would be really good to know. I've been he was.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. That will go into the history books. And first, of course, released by The Exceptions, September '87. That's, of course, that started up a whole world. The first time I saw the lower border removed, I was amazed. I've been living with the green desktop and with the borders around it, and I thought that this was really awesome, that this was possible to do. That's, of course, done by going 60 Hz and then back to 50 in the low border. The same trick, although Overscan line, removes the right border, again done by The Exceptions. Then it took a while until we get the left border removal by the TNT crew, Death of the Left Border, which is done by going to high resolution instead of 60 Hz. For a long time I thought that my computer actually started outputting dangerous frequencies to my TVs whenever you went to high resolution, so I thought it was best to do that in very short intervals. That left border wasn't stable. For many, many months I thought that the depth of the left border was supposed to be only every 16 pixels. The rest were supposed to be black, because that's what it looks like on my computer. Upper border, using 60 Hz, first done by XXX International in July in '88. So in the VBL you go to 60 Hz, and then as soon as you kind of get your first scan line, you go back to 50 Hz, and that gets you an upper border that on monitors that can handle 60 Hz looks pretty fine. On TV sets that can't handle 60 Hz, everything gets wavy or offset by 40 pixels out into the left or other strange effects. A lot of people who released upper border demos did not know this. First full screen was done by Omega in the Omega demo in December '88. My computer, it again showed every other 16 pixels black, and I thought that was a pretty cool effect. Seems to be pretty common. As far as I've heard, that full screen basically only worked on the Flying X machine. Upper border in 50 Hz, first released by TSP in a demo the week after the Omega demo at the Swedish New Year demo '89. TSP removed the upper, the left, and the right, and that's pretty strange. Why not remove the lower border as well, since everyone knows how you do that? I assumed it's because they got the code from level 16, and they were not allowed to release full screen before the Union demo. No one seems to be protesting. I checked the code, it's exactly the same.
It's where the guys are on the tour, the level 16 guys, so you might want to check back with them on that particular one. But I think that memory serves well, that might have been real, but I'm not sure.
Alright, I'll try to check with them when they come back. If I was level 16, I would have been pretty mad at TSP releasing a full screen a few weeks before the Union demo, since they used the same code. Anyway, it used an upper border in 50 Hz. It had lots of bugs, that 3-border screen, and I will get back to that. And the first full screen stable by level 16 in the Union demo. And what's amazing with that full screen code is that it's without modification used today. So at that point in time, the state of the art of full screen, of border removal, had already been researched and done. Now I've commented upon this being stable and other full screen lines being unstable. Now what do I mean by stable and unstable? Here's a diagram stolen from Alien about the different chips that are involved in doing these tricks on the ST. We have the glue, which is the glue in the machine. It deals with a sync timer. It reads the state of registers, and it then outputs different signals. It tells the video to go into different hertz, refresh rates, counting cycles, etc. We've got the MMU, which is responsible, of course, for bus arbitration, who gets access to the memory when, and it latches addresses onto the bus. So it's involved in counting the number of bytes that have been displayed. And we have the shifter, which is, of course, responsible for reading the words from memory that the MMU has told it to read, look it up into the palette, and rotate the bits. Everything about stable and unstable has to do with the shifter. Because when we do full screens, we only affect the glue. It's the glue chip that we manipulate. And the shifter tags along, and we hope that it will do the nice thing. And as we've seen with the every other 16 pixels black and unstable and stable, it doesn't really want to do that.
Are you sure it's a shifter problem? That the shifter only displays the data the MMU puts on this address bus?
I am definitely sure it's a shifter problem, and the rest of the presentation will go into more details. Alright, so what are the commonly used variants of stabilizers? How do we deal with the unstable shifter? The gold standard, which was already done in the Union demo, or the TCP screen, is to, at the end of the line, switch to high resolution, which for instance will make the pixels black since they're now outputted on the mono pin. Wait a knob for cycles, or 8 as well as since due to the move, and then switch back to a low resolution. So that's fine. You get a black vertical bar at the very right of the screen. What happens is that the shifter is clear. Now, this stabilizer has been called many names. Closing the right border is one of them. What it does is to make sure that the shifter is in a known state before the next line begins. There is another variant though, as far as I know, invented by Gunslick of the Matrix. Don't know why, but thanks for finding that variant.
I like colors instead of black.
Colors instead of black. I think that's a wonderful reason for doing it. Going to medium resolution 4 cycles earlier and staying there, and of course the shifter actually works differently in medium compared to high, so doing this 4 cycles earlier is the correct thing to do.
Oh, and I didn't want to use registers, so I moved immediate to address. So yeah, that's the reason. Oh, it works. Oh, fine.
I love this. So the reason you're doing 4 cycles earlier, which is the correct thing to do, is because you didn't want to waste registers, which meant your move instructions were 12 cycles instead of 8. It's a very good invention. It's used today, and it actually will influence. So the difference between these stabilizers will actually influence some other things that I will get to at the end of the presentation. The first one, by accident, cancels H black. Now that's a TV signal, which basically tells the TV or monitor, I'm not sending any data now, so that you can be really, really sure that when you see a pulse next, it's going to be the end of the line or the beginning of the new line, if you want, pulse, the sync pulse. The first stabilizer cancels that, and any pixels that you have at the far right of the scan line will be displayed up until the sync pulse. It's fully possible that a screen will actually not work and not show your full screen if you have color data there. And the other version, of course, if you have pixels where the shifter goes into medium res, it will show that those pixels in medium resolution. So this was a switch done at the end of a full screen line. And if you've ever done full screens, you know all about switches. Forget all about the switches. For the rest of this talk, I want you to forget all you know about switches. They're completely uninteresting to talk about when we do full screens. I have analyzed how the glue works in ST and STD and written down a state machine, because there is no chip in the Atari that sits and does if then else. A register is checked and an action is taken dependent on that register. So this is what the glue state machine looks like on the ST. To the left you have cycles as seen by the CPU when the CPU does a move instruction. I'm only interested in being able to manipulate registers, so I count from moves. So you can see at cycle 4, if the resolution register is high, it will start displaying the screen. Another interesting point is at cycle 164, if resolution is high, it will stop showing the screen, etc., etc. There might be some interesting things still left to analyze, but this one it's actually pretty complete. So, you might have heard about wake states, or you might not. Wake states were first talked about in 2006 in a thread on Atari forum where Paulo Simos and Idro were discussing. And they were talking about how code sometimes was different when the machine was cold and when it was warm, when it was booted up. And it was persistent, so it was when the machine was powered on. it would stay the same if you reset. And this, they then documented, changed things in how you could do manipulation of different registers. In 2012, Paolo made a comeback after being absent, and now decided that there were not just 2 wake states, there were 4. The 2 earlier ones had been subdivided into 2 more. And to be able to see these, your code needed to be precision at 2 cycle intervals. And every demo coder, basically up until then, knows that on the Atari everything is 4 cycle aligned, which isn't true. Oh yeah, actually I want to mention that. Even SYNC's code in 89, 90 worked under the assumption that Atari had done multiple revisions of the hardware. We talked about, oh, your machine is different from mine. If I want to open the lower border, I need to do it 40 cycles earlier, etc., etc., etc. There are differences in the Atari machines. The biggest one for these effects is that the machine can be 8.007 MHz CPU, 8.01 MHz CPU, 8.02 MHz CPU, that's the common one, or 8.05 MHz CPU for NTSC. The CPU clock, if that is different between machines, the MFP isn't. So if your code relies on setting a timer and doing something when the timer when the timer throws, you will end up at different places. So that's why opening the lower border, for example, or maybe the top border, works differently on different hardware. But when it comes to opening full-screen scanlines, there are no differences between Atari chipsets. They all work the same, besides ST and STE. And why is this? So on the ST, clock cycles get propagated between chips. So the shifter gets 32 MHz, and then MMU gets 16 MHz, and the glue gets 8 MHz, and the CPU gets 8 MHz. But the glue and CPU aren't synchronized. So randomly, when you boot up your machine, they can be offset from one another by 0 to 3 cycles. So whatever the glue reads at a certain point in time, at which it believes to be the point in time, might be offset 0 to 3 cycles from the CPU's point of view. And those are the 4 wake states. So if I want to manipulate registers at cycle 56, in wake state 1, the glue basically understands my code from the CPU's point of view if I've done the modifications at cycle 56, both for frequency and resolution. What's called wake state 3, the resolution register is actually read, I need to manipulate it 2 cycles later, or I can. Wake state 4, both frequency and resolution registers are at 58, and wake state 2, which actually seems to be the most uncommon one, I need to modify the registers at 58 and 60. Now these sound like small differences, especially since our code usually runs at 4 cycle intervals. But look at this. The resolution register, when it's read by glue, as seen from the CPU, between wake state 1, very common, and wake state 2, quite uncommon, actually differs by 4 cycles. So we would kind of expect there to be some demos at some point in time having been written that actually do not work as they should in one of these wake states. One of them is the famous TCP snow effect in the Swedish New Year demo. I actually remember, when I did this research, I remembered that I had seen that screen at different times when I booted my computer. The distinct TCP log in the middle was either centered or off to the left. So I thought that was part of the demo. Don't know why, don't know how to do the random thing, but sure, at some point in time it's a bit off to the left. I've analyzed the demo now, disassembled it, and it actually is that in wake state 2, they will fail to open the left border, which is the common thing that happens, and thus the logo will be centered a bit to the left.
Is it possible to detect the state?
Yes, it's possible to detect the states. Maybe I should publish that source code. I will publish that source code to detect the state. Publismos has written a program so that you can boot your computer and see which wake state it is in. But if you do a carefully selected scanline where you try to open different borders and stop borders, etc., and you count at the end of the scan lines how many bytes long was this scan line, you can actually know which wait state you're in by just doing that on one scan line. Of course, having a logo that's sometimes centered and sometimes off a bit to the left would be an interesting thing to ponder about for sync scrolling. I don't know if that influenced TCB's invention of the sync scroller. And there's a ULM full screen that does not work in wake state 2. I forgot the name of it. Please help me out.
Oh, I don't know which one it is because I have problems to get into wake state.
As I said, wake state 2 is difficult to get to. Gansvik hasn't his problems getting it to himself, but it's one of your full screens does not work in wake state 2 either. And as a combination of how we do two-cycle granularity and the wake state. So how do we get to two-cycle granularity? How can we do that on the Atari?
Old school, sorry.
Old school. There's an instruction called exchange registers. It takes 6 cycles, so we would expect that to always take 8 cycles on the Atari. But instructions actually can be interleaved depending on when they're used with us. So if you do an exif instruction followed by move, the move will actually be offset 2 cycles from what you would expect from a glue. So you are able to do moves with 2-cycle granularity. And since you're able to do that, you can actually work with the glue in all the different wake states. And this sounds really complicated, but to the effects that we're soon going to talk about, you actually need to be able to do this. You need to be able to detect which wake state are you in, and then manipulate the glue depending on that. So I talked a lot about the ST and the need for stabilizers. So I just want to mention that there are stabilizers on the STE, and you don't need stabilizers because there is a full screen that's 224 bytes instead of 230, where you don't need to clear the shifter. That was actually invented by Leonard of Oxygen without knowing it. In a discussion on the Atari forum, Leonard all of a sudden wrote, "Oh, I have 178 byte or 180 byte on scan links. Can anyone else see if they have them?" And people said, "No, we don't." And then that was forgotten. And then DHS, and I sort of forgot the person at DHS that reinvented this. Sorry? I don't think it was evil, no. But in any case, so when I looked into this, and I will get back to that state machine, I realized this was exactly what Leonard has seen on his STE, and everyone who said, "No, you're wrong," they tried on ST. And of course it doesn't work on ST. So this is the glue state machine for STE. There are 2 big changes. One, the first position, we're deciding to where to start or when to start the line, has been changed from cycle 4 to cycle 0. Sorry. That's why you'll see a lot of demos written for the ST that fail to open the left border on STE. They're 1 knot off. That's why I had to re-release 2 of SYNC's full screens 2 years ago to be STE compatible. The other one is something called preload. So we're taking the decision much earlier when to start a normal scan line, 16 cycles earlier actually. There's a decision made to preload. Anyone knows what that is? Exactly, because of hardware scrolling. The STE needs its fine scroll. So to be able to fine scroll, it needs the data 16 cycles earlier than on ST. And there's an algorithm running. The chipset, the GST MCU in the ST is much more advanced than the chips in the ST. So there's a bit of an algorithm running that actually handles, oh, I'm preloading, which resolution am I in, and when should I stop preloading? And you can manipulate that algorithm. So you can start the preloading, and it thinks, oh, I'm going to preload 4 words, I'm in low resolution. And you immediately go to high resolution. And it says, oh, I've done preloading, I've already got my word, and it will exit. And this is how the STE short left border, which creates a stable STE full screen scan line, how that is done. There are also 2 other scan line lengths you can get that there is no point in anyone ever using. They haven't been used, which is +4 and +6. Can we do an optimized full screen scan line? I said that the level 16 full screen scan line from the Union demo is still the state of the art. I watched demos here yesterday that we're still using that full screen scan line. With the knowledge we have today about wake states and the state machine, can we do better? And this is a good time for me to drink some water. And we're back. There's obviously something we need to do at the start of the scan line. It's not a full screen scan line if we actually do not start the line. That check on ST is at cycle 4. We need to go to high resolution to start the scan line. Let's just do that, nothing else. Let's just go to high resolution. However, we can't stay in high resolution forever. At cycle 30, we actually really need to be in low resolution. Otherwise, the computer will start blanking and H-syncing. It will screw up badly the rest of the scan line. Let's go to low resolution before cycle 30. We need to be in 50 Hertz at cycle 54. Else it will be an NTSC scan line of 5.8 cycles. Let's make sure we're at 50 Hertz at cycle 54. And let's stay in 50 Hertz until when? Well, we want a full screen scan line, so we actually need to go to 60 Hertz when the check is made for whether a scan line should end in POP. This is all we have to do. An optimized full screen scan line, only talking about the glue, does 4 things. It goes to high resolution at cycle 0. It goes to 50 Hertz, a suitable place at cycle 8. It goes to low resolution at cycle 16, and it goes to 60 Hertz at line 378. These are not switches. The glue does not care about switches. It only cares what the register is at a certain point in time when it reads the states. This full screen scan line, these 4 instructions, actually does work sometimes.
Sounds stable.
But I would not suggest you use it in a demo. It might work on your machine and no one else's. And it might work sometimes and not the rest of the time. But can we solve that? This is a glue full screen scanner, by the way. It always works if you only care about the glue. But as I said, the shifter is involved as well. So this is a very unstable scanner. The reason we have a stabilizer is to clear the shifter and make it play more. So, can we do a stabilizer on this full screen scanner? Sure, we could add the regular stabilizer. But I don't like that. It's visible, it cuts off graphics at the far right. It also needs 2 instructions and not in between, and well, that just screws up my code. So let's do the stabilizer someplace else. The only reason it's at the far right is that you don't want to disturb the screen. The only thing you want is to clear the line up before the next line. So let's try making a stabilizer at the beginning of the next line. And the one I have, and which is used in the closure SYNC's demo that you saw yesterday, looks like this. I've added 1 instruction. I go to medium resolution at cycle 8, and then I stack the other ones. This is, of course, 16 cycles less used for moves than a regular full screen scanner. So I had more free time. I also only need to do stuff at 2 points. 1 big block, 4 instructions in the beginning of the line, and 1 single move, 8 cycles at the right border. That means I can do movements more efficiently, since I don't need to break them up for the stabilizer. Does this work all the time and on all machines? It works really well on ST in wake state 1, wake state 3, and wake state 4. It works on wake state 2, but I have to have 2 versions, depending on whether a shifter is currently happy or unhappy. There are no better discussions. The shifter can be either or. It might be possible to detect which code should be used when, and so we would have solved the ST as far as I know. STE, I consider to have been solved when I got here yesterday. I then tried closure on the compo machine. I fixed one of the problems that I could see, but the other one I would actually need to take that machine home and play with it for a while to fix. And that's why closure ran off my machine and not the Compo machine yesterday. Quite embarrassing. This is the maximum resolution full screen on the Atari ST. It's weight state dependent. 415 pixels horizontal is what I get in weight state 2. 413, 412, 410 in the other weight states. 413, I think, on STE. 276 scan lines high. That is, of course, using the trick that has been documented several times, that you can indeed open 2 more lines at the very bottom by another lower order switch. You actually get a few pixels, about 18, on line number 277 as well, if you want to really break the record. No one has done a full screen this big before.
I did, but didn't publish.
You did, but didn't publish. Oh well, the things that we've done we haven't published. So that's something to strive for, and especially emulator writers are nowhere near this. So emulator writers need to beef up their game. That was a lot about Overscan. Now I want to talk about SYNCCC a bit. SYNCCC was, when I started writing demos, one of the magic things. I did not figure that out by myself. I was in a demo crew that joined another demo crew, and after a while we became members of SYNC, but before that we got the secret SYNCCC from Redhead, who sits up here in SYNC, and we were extremely happy looking at that little, very, very stable raster in a border, and thought, wow, now we can do it all. A regular SYNCCC is of course quite easy, and I should have been able to figure that one out. You read the video and see how far have I gotten to the video mem, you negate it, and then you wait for an inverted amount of time, and then you're locked. Alright, that's nice. That's basically what everyone does. You can either use a jump table, that was the first method used, or you can use a shift to do the wait. You need to use an image line to sync this way. You need to start the screen, get image data, and then SYNCCC. So that's what everyone is doing. Unless you sync to HBL. That's interesting. HBL is the crappiest interrupt of them all in the ST. Once you see it, you go, oh wow, I'll use that for rasters. And you realize that they start in, a few pixels in the left border, and they're completely unstable. They just jump back and forth. Crap, never use HBL again. Use timer B. I love HBL. It was discovered by Ejor that the instability of the HBL is the same for all the auto-vector interrupts, and is caused by the difference between the E-clock, 1 megahertz, of the 68,000 divided down. And it's predictable. So this whole instability can be compensated for. You can detect the pattern of the instability and then do an anti-pattern. So you can check how unstable is it, when does it repeat. I wait the inverted amount of time, and I'm locked to the HBL. This pattern is actually exactly the same on all machines, ST and STE, but it's actually somewhat easier to write a code that dynamically detects it and compensates than detecting where you are in the pattern. This gives us an extra full screen scan line. You can sync lock to HBL at line 33, and you're locked and done when you need to open the left border, so you can use all scan lines for your full screen. Or, as we will get to, if you want to do sync scrolling, you can use additional scan line at the top. And of course, closure is sync locked to HBL. I detect the pattern right after the boot sector has run, and then the demo code actually runs this anti-pattern every BBL throughout the whole demo, and stays in sync with the HBL. Sync scrolling.
This E-clock correction has been done from the author of Spectrum 512 years and years ago. You had a mouse moving on the full color spectrum picture, and he needs to read the keyboard Asia, which also is affected by the E clock, and he corrected it in Spectrum 512. And that is the first place I know the E clock is corrected.
So I don't know if you've ever heard, so I will repeat it. In Spectrum 512, to be able to read the mouse pointer, the author needed to correct for the E clock, which is the same instability for the offset between the CPU and the HGA chips. But I actually don't know how he compensated for it.
Just software, he knows the pattern, and he uses different routines to read the mouse pointer for the different states of the E clock.
All right, so he knows about the pattern and he uses different routines to read from the HGA chips to compensate for it. I think that's amazing. Spectrum 512 was somewhat before its time. Pretty impressive. All right, let's talk sync scrolling. The name kind of implies it was invented by Sync, but it wasn't. In Sweden, we call it hardware scrolling, or hard scrolling. And as far as I've understood, it was invented by Omega and TCB without knowing about it, both of them. I think I've seen the story. The Flying Egg calls up Ancool talking about who we have secrets of. And Ancool talks about the secret stuff. And then Flying Egg mentions, well, we can scroll the whole line, the whole screen in 13 lines or so. Ancool replies, we need 15. All right, so first released by TCB in the Kali demos. The same routine is used in Somewhat Main Menu and Enchanted Lands. They actually never changed the routine, as far as I know. They only use the left and right borders. Oh, I assume everyone knows how sync scrolling is done. If you make scan lines of different lengths, you will read different amounts of memory before the rest of the screen is shown. So by combining the different scan line lengths, you can offset the screen with how many bytes you want to have been read before it shows or not, and the screen scrolls. All right. Before we knew about wait states, we thought that it was pretty unstable to open scan lines. Left and right, tested through time. We kind of believe that those worked on all machines. So TCB used only those. That's why their demos has a color change background in the top order, and then the screen starts quite low down. Sync in Switch Near Demo 8990 used a sync scroll routine which needed 9 lines, using more combinations, line length combinations. Griff of Inner Circle made one that I think it was used for many years, which used 7 scan lines. And we're further today. So, thanks to the research by Paulus Moos in 2012, we now have 12 line length combos. And these are all deduced. You can actually go and read the state machine and just figure out, if I do this and that, if I do this and that, if I do this and that, the line length will be this many cycles, which is of course this many bytes. And you get to 12 combos. To all the 128 offsets you need. And those are 4 lines. So a modern sync scroll needs 4 lines, and you sync scroll to the HBL, which people didn't used to do. So compared to older demos, you only need visible 3 lines to do your sync scrolling, and you get graphics almost to the top. That was all about the glue. Everything I've said so far, besides stabilization, has been about glue. All the sync scrolling has been about the glue chip. The cooler sync scrolls are using the shifter. So separate chip, separate design, separate pieces of code. And the very first example of this that was released is the 4-pixel full-screen sync scroll by Alien. And I will get back to how that is done. There is a 4-pixel non-full-screen sync scrolling that was done by LGBK, Paulus and Moos. And that's amazing, both that it was done and that it hadn't been done before. And I'll get back to you on why. So, how does Alien's sync scroll work in the Punisher machine demo? This is a simplified shifter schematic, again by Alien. The important part here is that the shifter has two sets of registers. One set he calls IR, and those are registers that when the MMU says, I've got video memory data for you, I've latched the address, read, the shifter reads 4 words in low resolution into those registers. Once it has read those 4 words, it will copy the contents of those words into internal registers, which are shifted out 1 bit at a time with a Palais lookup onto the RGB data. Now this of course means that if you can put something in these IR registers so that the shifter actually starts outputting data after it having read 3 words, it will do so 4 cycles earlier than it would have if it had to read 4 words. And that's the concept of the 4-pixel sync scroll by Alien. Open the left border, go to medium resolution, and wait. Different amount of times, depending on how much you want to scroll, and then go back to low resolution. And you do that every scan line. I had a discussion here during this weekend when people asked, why? What do you gain from doing this compared to a regular sync scroll? You can just pre-shift your graphics 4 times and you get a 4-pixel sync scroll. Well, you actually get to 16-bit boundaries, so you can do move instructions and pinpoint the move instructions on 4-pixel boundaries, where if you didn't do this, you would need to add more your content. So it's a lot more effective for those use cases. Has anyone here done a full screen, exited your full screen back into your developer environment, and the bit planes have been screwed up? Everyone have done that. Now, why did you not invent the 4-pixel non-full screen sync scroll? Because that's what it is. Paolo realized that that's stable. The bit planes are screwed up, and it's stable. Game is running. Interesting. Can we enforce that? Can we cause it to happen predictably? And that is what he invented in 2012. And there's a concept demo of a bee scrolling 1 pixel at a time, working on a 512K memory, which would be impossible otherwise due to the amount of memory you need to pre-shift. You start off at the top of the screen by unstabilizing the shifter. You go to high or medium resolution for X amount of time, and then you go back and the shifter says, oh crap, I've got leftover words in my registers. And every new event it keeps doing that. So it has 1 word at the end of the line. When the next line starts, it reads 3 words. Start the screen, that is 4 pixels earlier. Get to the end of the line, there's 1 word left, and it can start the next line. After 3 words have been read, that's 4 pixels earlier, and you have a 4-pixel sync scroll. Wow. Now, I told you that the glue state machine is really stable. The shifter is not. I told you that the glue state machine is an offset from the CPU, and we can probe it. If I do this and that, it can detect which wake state that I'm in, and I know that then I should do these instructions at a certain point in time due to the wake state, and everything will be stable and nice. The shifter is not nice. This code currently works, and the crash before lost me a slide. Let's go from memory. This code currently works in wake state 2, wake state 4, wake state 3 sometimes, or quite often actually, for all the 4 different positions. 0, of course, -4, -8, -12. Those are 1, 2, 3 words left in the shifter at the end of the line. In wake state 1, one of the positions, -12, doesn't work at all, which is the same for sometimes in wake state 3. So you would get 3 of the 4 needed positions to get to 4 pixels. However, 8 pixels always works. So that's nice. It's current research. I'm not going to claim that it's impossible to fix, but it doesn't seem likely. The reason for that is that the amount of time the shifter is idling at the end of a line is different between the different wake states, and it seems in wake state 1, which is the wake state I believe Atari wanted the all chips to be in, maybe they thought the glue and CPU were synchronized, and is the wake state the STE is in. It doesn't have wake states, but it acts like the wake state 1. The shifter actually clears the words at the end of the line, so you can't get this unstable condition to propagate. But then there's another issue. Depending on the position of the sun, if you've been drinking, maybe how long your machine has been warm or cold or so, every other 16 pixels get black. Have you heard about that before? That's what happened in the beginning when we didn't have a stabilizer for our full-screen scanlines. And indeed, the condition is the same. So Paolo has solved it by having, as I have in Closure, 2 different code paths, and the user has to select which one actually gives a working scroll. So there aren't only 4 wake states. Now, if you've been a demo coder in the 90s, you already thought it was pretty problematic that I talked about the 4 different wake states I could throw up your code, and that you need to handle if you wanted to do modern sync scrolling, 12 condition line lengths, etc. But it's not enough. We have the banded screens, every other 16 pixels black. We have what's called Spectrum 512 pixels. You might remember that. So in Spectrum 512, sometimes you got a black dot. And only power off, power on can fix it. There's actually another condition, which is pretty much caused by the same thing, but different, where the color of the pixel that is displayed will be due to bus congestion. But 2 chips trying to access the bus at the same time. And so you get a value that is not in the Palais registers, but is depending on what has been traveling on the bus. I talked about the glue and the shifter. But the MMU at 16 MHz can likely be offset from the glue and CPU as well. And maybe from both of them. And that's problematic. And some of these states are migratory. They shift when the machine is already up and running. So I'm going to show a brief video, and you might see some small 16 pixel, oh yeah, you can, toggles. And this is happening live. That screen was working, I left the machine on, and this started appearing. And it will continue to appear more and more. After a while, it might look like this. And that's not funny. I caused that to happen. It actually should not happen. Maybe it will. So what do we know about the every 16 pixels black? What causes it? I mean, that's pretty interesting. How come every 16 pixels become black? It's only true for low resolution, by the way. In mono resolution, it's every 5th word, which gives some insight into what it is that's happening. So, I have some theories about it, which is quite tentative, sort of based on the fact that this is what it looks like in mono. This is, by the way, a right border removal in mono. As I said, this was not the final presentation due to the crash. And I have to do the rest from memory. It's likely that the shifter fails to read the data it needs into its IR registers. So it has no data, and the internal registers are thus black. There has been, or border color, there has been no copy from the IR registers to the internal registers. This is my active area research right now. This is fun to do. So how can we detect from software? That's the only thing that's interesting. How can we detect from software that the shifter has not been able to read from the address the MMU has matched? If you go to the source code of emulators, you will see comments that says, reading from these memory range of these registers will return random data. How do you get random data? That's difficult. Where do you find random data in Atari? I don't know. That's one place to look, because most often you will get the last data that has been transferred over the bus. Now you can find different places in an STE, with or without format memory, and an ST, where you can read the latest data that's been traveling over the bus. And it's my hope that I will be able to detect the banded substates by reading what has been traveled over the bus. And if so, that will make Paolo's 4-pixel sync scroll a bit more valid, and will work in more cases without the user having to do anything. It should make it possible for all of us in the ST community to work upon the full-screen scan lines that I've done and used in Closure, and make those more stable, working on compo machines, for example, and thus gain 16 extra cycles. Because as I wrote in Closure, the picture display used 50 palette changes per scan. And the only reason I could go from the 48 done by MPP to 50 is, of course, that I had an extra 8 cycles fetching data and 8 cycles writing data to the palette registers, and that I did not have a stabilizer bothering me at the end of the scan line. That was my presentation on the latest in Overscan and sync scrolling. It's been very nice to talk to you all, since you're basically all smarter than me. And if there are any questions, please throw them up here.
Yes, I'm wondering, in the old days, there was talk about 2 different STs for opening the upper border.
Yeah, I have one.
Is it true? Is it false? What's the problem?
Right, the question is, in the beginning there was talk about there being 2 different versions of the ST that had different open border heights. So I'll get back to a slide, and it will take a while. Yes, it's true. When Atari first made the ST, I mean, Atari is an American company, even though they never sold any computers in the US. And they thought, we'll start the screen at NTSC at this position, and in PAL, more lines, let's start it a bit further down. And they released the machines, and it was basically on some TV sets, you could not see the top of the screen. So Atari had to make a new edition of the glue, which decides this, and insert that into machines. So really early STs actually have a shorter top border. The glue takes the decision to start the screen earlier. But if you use the type of full screen scan line that I proposed, you do not care about that. I am at 60 Hertz at the end of all scan lines.
Aha, yeah, clearly.
So the only thing I need to do is to avoid stopping the screen at the NTSC screen stop position and NTSC blank position, which are at lines 200 and 224. And 270 something, 270. 5, 6. If you don't want the extra 2 scan lines. So it is an issue, and you need to handle it if you want your code to work on all machines, those with a short top order, if you do the regular switching at the end of scan lines. But kind of the point of this presentation, don't do that. It wastes cycles and you don't need to. Any other questions?
Yes, the 508 cycle scan line for correcting the E-clock. How do you think about that?
Alright, so there's another way of synchronizing your code to the E-clock and get stable HBL, etc. And that is by realizing that if the VBL had been a tiny bit shorter, 16 cycles shorter, they would be in sync. And how do you make your VBL 16 cycles shorter? Well, you use 4 scan lines of 60 Hertz. That works, but it's outside the spec.
Who cares?
There are lots of cool sync tricks that have been made in demos over the years, that do not actually follow the rules of the state machine. You can do a 0-byte scan line by cancelling H-sync for the next line. If you're lucky, your monitor and TV will handle it. If you're not, it will look weird. And there are many demos released with such strange effects, because it worked on the computer and the TV set of the one who made it. I expect there are monitors and TVs that will not like being in 60 Hz for 4 scan lines during a BBL and the rest in 512.
But it exists an international demo, it's like for 30 lines in 60 Hz, so who cares for 4 lines?
So it works, and XXX International did it for the whole top border. I agree. On my TV, it was almost half the screen in the top border was outside the
But
border.
if you do the lines at the end of the video, it doesn't matter anymore, because after the video sync, everything will be alright.
Sure. That's absolutely one way of doing it.
And then your reading of the keyboard Asia will be stable too everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a big advantage.
Yeah, there should be
Especially
that
if you want to use the mouse.
I don't want to use the mouse. Have you used an Atari mouse? It's horrible. All right. Other questions?
Are you aware of any emulator developments? I mean, is this sort of going into there, and people are trying to emulate this? Or?
Steam
Atari
Seagull Edition patched the emulator for the 508 cycle scan lines as soon as I released it.
So, since I analyzed the state machine and realized that emulators need to be 2 cycle exact to actually work in all different wake states, and they should be able to simulate them. I have been talking to the emulator writers about it. They think it will be a lot of work. It's definitely on the plan for Atari, and talk to Niklas. Currently, if you try to do something really advanced, it will not work in the emulators. And Closure, our demo, does not work in emulators. The only reason I could show you the scroll before is because that was specifically written for the emulator. If you go to an FPGA thing like MIST, they don't have the 68,000 CPU cores with higher than 4 cycle granularity to work with. So that will take some time.
And did you do any experiments with external sync? You can switch to external sync on screen and so on.
So right, have I done experiments on using external sync? It's on the to-do. I briefly tried it. You could get a 14-byte long scan line by not getting to low resolution at 30 cycles, and the computer will start a new H-sync and it will screw up the scan line badly.
Yeah.
I thought that if I went to external sync, maybe it didn't throw a new H-sync, but it did not get that to work.
Okay.
So try it briefly.
I don't have any question because I'm a graphic artist and this goes way over my head. But I want to thank you for that extremely structured and analytical presentation. And it made me smile because it was. I seem to remember the night when 67819 from text removed the right border. It was literally after half a bottle of vodka at 3 in the morning. And we were like falling asleep, and next day we woke up and the white border was still gone, and he was sort of wondering how we did that. So I feel like having been in a presentation of the chemical and physical processes of rapid oxidization that happens when you burn stuff. And we were just rubbing sticks together back then. Like, look at what happens when you rub these sticks together real fast. Isn't that cool? So I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm somewhat active in the retro scene, and I get invited to interviews in magazines and at shows on talking about retro computing. And when it comes to the Atari ST, I usually start off by saying that we didn't have training wheels on the bike like the Amiga had. We had to do everything ourselves. And then I bring up Overscan, and
Yep.
sync scrolling as the key developments on the Atari ST that made demo coding what it is. And we all know who started it all. So, thank you.
It was fun. It was fun.
All right. No more questions? You can find. Sorry, we have.
One more question about the black pixels. You said in low res it could be 16 pixels and in high res 5 pixels.
Every fifth.
In fifth, have
Word.
you made some tests in main res? Because there I have never seen black pixels.
I have not caused them to happen in Windows. So the band screen, the every other 16 pixels black, which is kind of every other copying of words, but the higher resolution is the fifth. I've been playing around very seldomly in medium resolution, so I haven't had it happen. It might not be that it can happen, I just haven't seen it.
But you say it's stable in low res. What happens when you switch to medium res then?
Sorry.
You say it's stable in low res, the shifter state.
Yes.
What happens when you shift to medium res?
Alright, so if I get a banded screen, this is by the way why my full screen scan line isn't these 4 instructions, but I go to libres. So one way of solving a banded screen, if you get one, is to go briefly to medium resolution. One way to cause a banded screen, if you want to snoop the bus and see if you can detect it, is also to go to medium res and then exit in the beginning of scan line and see if the line gets banded. So obviously we are kind of forcing the shifter to get out of sync with something, which is pretty amazing in itself, that we can, in software, force it to, hardware-wise, get out of sync.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because that's kind of crazy from the state machine that we do. So that's not documented anywhere as a thing. So how do you reverse it to get the very precise state machine?
So in a thread on Atari forum in 2012, Paulus Mos at UBK suddenly posted an Excel sheet where he documents for all the different wake states exactly what effects he sees doing switches at different cycles. I read that absolutely too much. We all have jobs and I don't know how I did it. And after a while I realized, come on, no one actually writes if then else in a chip in 1985. It doesn't happen. So it must be something else. And the thing that you can do is a simple state machine. You know, flip-flops and flips and flops. And this is it. This explains, not only explains everything, but after I had done the state machine, analyzed the ST and STE, I then did new stuff that hadn't been done before on the STE new lines. Just by my state machine tells me this should work, I test it and it works.
So you need to test on a lot of different machines since you have the knowledge for all the machines. So do you have all the machines yourself? Where did you test on the different machines?
So how many machines have I tested on, since obviously my demo didn't work on the compo machine yesterday? I have 5 Atari STs.
Okay.
And a few years ago I had none. So I have 2 STEs, 2 STFM, and 1 Mega ST with a slow CPU clock of 8.1 megahertz. And I've additionally tested on other machines in sync members. So I did think it would be fully functional for all the machines. And this is why the original full screen scan line by Ilya in level 16 is so amazing. I don't know how many machines that one was tested on, but it still works today. It has worked since it was made, which is pretty amazing.
How about Mega ST? Falcon, TT?
I briefly owned a Falcon, and then I saw Doom. And the ML wasn't around to give us Doom and Quake and Falcon then. So I have not played around on the Falcon at all. I also am a member of SYNC, and the STE is too new school for us.
It is.
It is, absolutely.
That was half-hearted, alright. So sorry, I haven't analyzed those machines at all. I might get a Falcon in the future.
If I remember correctly, IJOR on Atari Forum just threw a bomb in and said, okay, I decapped the shifter, I have everything the shifter does. Has anyone contacted Azure, has bugged him about those plans or whatever? I mean, it could be essential to see what's going on there for real.
So Azure indeed has said that he has decapped a lot of the chips and analyzed it, and that's it. He does seem to want to release that information himself when he feels it's complete. I don't know. And with the people who are doing this kind of research, and it goes for Paul as well, so surely me, I need to get back to my family. And all of a sudden we do the research in a few months, and then we wait a few years, and then we continue. So who knows, for the next STNICCC, maybe we'll have some new developments.
Did anyone try to get hold of the breadboards? Because it is known where they are. I think even the number where in the museum they're stored should be known. And there could be some information in it too, because it's essentially the wiring the shifter is made of.
So we have access to the breadboards. I do not know if the breadboards were still there.
They are in a museum in Silicon Valley, yeah.
Someone should actually try to get access to it and ask for access. People who do these retro things, even if they have these sort of museums, often like new developments and new insights, and people care.
It's in the US, so it's protected by the NCA.
Probably, yeah.
All right.
Do anybody does like full frame synchronization? Level 16 full screen doesn't have any frame synchronization, which actually it feeds on the entire frame, and then they don't synchronize at all the frame. Anybody else does that?
Yes, me. Lots of it.
Yes, you and stuff done that, running the whole stream without the synchronization.
I even needed a basic.
Don't mention this. As far as I understand, this presentation has been filmed.
I want to do just for the voice.
I have one question that is about out of scope, but maybe anyone knows why Atari chose the bitplane pixels for ST? Because from the coder's point of view, it's the most crappy way to organize screen.
I know the answer to
I don't think so.
Easiest chip.
No, it's because they want to do text scrolling fast. And text scrolling is faster with bitplanes. It's not good for games, but it's good for text scrolling.
Why did Atari do bitplanes? They foresaw the invention of chunky pixel with the movie instruction, of course. Where now Atari ST is going to be now in doing 7 FPS demo effects.
Probably hardware designers are not coders and they just don't give a single about it.
Could be.
Hey, here is your hardware and now it's your work.
Alright, no more questions? You know where to find me. Wrap.
Nice.